Good morning, everyone. It's Ange from Digestive Detective. Welcome this morning. Sorry I'm a bit late, but we have got 18th birthdays and uni exams and it's bedlam, actually. So I'm here now. So what we're talking about today is iron deficient anemia. I've seen this a lot in the last couple of weeks, especially in women and some teenagers. So it is pretty prevalent. So what causes anemia? Lots of things. The first thing I think of is blood loss initially. So do you have heavy periods? So you do lose small amounts of iron on a regular basis in your feces and in dead skin cells and things like that. So you are losing some all the time. So if you have an operation and you have you lose some blood, that's a good way to decrease your iron. Any sort of stomach issues that involve bleeding, like ulcers or things like that, bowel problems. If I see a parasitic infection, there's normally some issue around the iron, whether it's too much or too little. It just depends on the person who it's happening for. And if you take aspirin or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on a regular basis, they can also make you lose iron because little bits of your stomach start to bleed continuously from that. So my recommendation would be to find the cause of the iron. Just go, oh yeah, I'm iron deficient and that's the end of it. Find the cause. So men need about 8 milligrams of iron per day and women need roughly around 18. Menstruating women need roughly around 18. If you're pregnant, you need slightly more. Kids around growth spurt times, they need a bit more too. So signs and symptoms that you could be iron deficient anemia, have iron deficient anemia. You're short of breath for no particular reason. You fatigue. You can be dizzy and you can have pica. So I know when my kids are iron deficient because they eat ice and they just eat ice. So they'll go to the fridge to get something and they'll come back with ice. So other symptoms, so that's a really common one in our house. So other symptoms that are not so common that you see are they're spoon-shaped nails. Instead of nails coming out, normally they come out and they curl down. That's a sign of anemia. Tinnitus, altered taste in your mouth and poor concentration are also signs of they're not signs that everybody have. They could also be other things, but generally they're symptoms that aren't so common of iron deficiency anemia. So there's two types of iron. There's a heme iron and a non-heme iron. So heme iron comes from meat products, essentially animal products, and non-heme iron comes from plants. So the heme iron from animals, it's more readily absorbed. It's much more easily absorbed. And the non-heme iron is not so easily absorbed. And it needs to have certain things to help break them down. So, for example, non-heme iron comes from legumes and whole grains and green vegetables and things like that. So they need to be properly prepared for you to be able to absorb the iron. So whole grains and beans and stuff all have lots of lectins and phytates and things like that. So they need to be properly broken down. So you do that by actually soaking them overnight in some acidulated water. So something is, put them into a glass bowl, put the things in, squeeze on some lemon juice and then leave them overnight, then rinse them off the next day and cook them. So that makes them more easily absorbed. You should try and get both heme and non-heme iron. Not so good if you're vegetarian. And then the next thing you need to think about is, are you absorbing the iron? So vitamin C is needed to help absorb iron, and as is B12. So to get vitamin C, I always recommend for somebody when they're having their leafy greens to squeeze some lemon or some citrus or something over the top of it, or into the actual greens, so they can it increases the iron absorption rate by 3 to 5% by doing that. So cooking in an iron pot is really useful as well because you get minuscule bits of iron that you ingest, so that helps you increase your levels. And pasta sauce too, there's iron in pasta sauce, so that's really good to cook pasta sauce in an iron pot and you're on fire. Tannin, there's some things, tannins found in black tea inhibit the absorption of iron. So if somebody's iron deficient, I always ask them, are they drinking tea with their dinner? Elderly people are often iron deficient because they normally have a tea and toast diet, and when they're having their toast, not that they'd get much iron from that, but if they're having anything else, they're drinking tea at the same time. The tannins in the tea bind to the iron and they can't absorb it. So it's best to consume tea and stuff after meals. So talking about now people who need more iron, pregnant women need more iron. They have an increase in their blood volume, and they need to give iron to the new baby. So especially in that first trimester, especially when you see them and they're so fatigued they actually can't get out of bed, they're the people who need more iron. Athletes, they need more iron because the iron's lost in sweat, and when you're building muscle you have a greater requirement for iron. Preemie babies, they're really low in iron because the iron is delivered to preemie babies through their mum. In the last couple of weeks they get a huge dump of iron delivered to them. So if they are born prematurely, they don't get that opportunity to get that. Children and toddlers, so every time a child has a growth spurt, they use exponential amounts of iron. So they need to be having iron-rich foods and vitamin C foods as well. And the other thing is teenagers. Again, growth spurts is quite common. It's especially noticeable in girls who have heavy periods or mood swings. And if I see a child who's self-mutilating or who's got really difficult moods and having a difficult time, I will automatically get them to have an iron test because it generally is a sign that they have lower iron. Supplements to take. It's best to take supplements that are non-constipating. So generally the ones the doctor give you are really constipating. So there are ones that you can take. There's a really great liquid brand in Australia called Spartone. So that's if you're just a little bit deficient, not if you're like iron deficient, totally iron deficient. And you want to be able to have I always suggest a practitioner one because they're higher in elemental iron and they normally have other cofactors in the iron tablet that help you absorb it, like vitamin C and lactoferrin and those sorts of things. And they're not constipating because that's the biggest, that people don't take iron because they get constipated. Would I have a blood transfusion? Well, there's a couple of things that would make me consider people to have a blood transfusion. There are some side effects, so that's always my concern with blood transfusions. And I have seen some terrible staining on skin from iron infusions where it's just something's gone wrong and then they get a big iron thing up their arm and it takes a long time, like years, for it to go away. So I'm always concerned about that. People can always get a little bit feverish or have some sort of reaction to the iron. I think that if your iron level is under 5 and your ferritin level is at rock bottom, I think that's a good time then to be thinking about an iron infusion. So that's probably most of the things that I have to tell you. The other thing probably I would like to say is I have a complete list of iron. So if anybody would like that list, if you email me at ange@digestivedetective.com.au and I'll send you the list. What's a good iron supplement for kids? Ez is asking me, a non-constipating one. Well, I would say they eat nearly no meat. I would say look at a Spartone or a Fab Iron are two really good ones. Are you Australian? So I'm not sure if you are. If you are, they would be two good ones to try them on. There's a really great ones from a company called Flawless as well that's for kids. It's made from beetroot and it's, yes, great. So I would go to the health food shop and look at a company called Flawless, and they do one, I think it's called Floridix is what it's called, and it comes in a really big bottle and it tastes quite good. It's made from beetroot and fruit and vegetables, so and it's very absorbable for them. If they're iron deficient, it won't increase their iron out of sight, but if you give it to them regularly over a period of time, it will actually increase their iron and get them to have green leafy veg. So definitely that would be a good one. Fab Iron and Spartone are a really good one for kids as well, because they're liquid and you can pour them into stuff. They do have that irony taste, but in saying that, they're easy to mix with a juice or anything like that. So so that's all. Does anybody else have any other questions? There are lots of foods that have iron. Probably the best ones are blackstrap molasses, sunflower seeds, tahini seeds, pumpkin seeds, all those sorts of things. Lots of green leafy vegetables, lots of legumes have non-heme iron, and some whole grains have non-heme iron too. So but for me, if you can have some small amounts of meat, that is great too, to be getting iron. And it needs to be a regular thing, because we are turning over iron so much. So that's sort of one of the first places that I look as a cause. So all those things I listed through, heavy periods, hemorrhoids, surgery, all that sort of stuff. And then, are you actually eating enough foods that have iron in them? Because a lot of people don't. They don't like meat, or they don't have enough vegetables to actually go with the meat, or they don't have enough vitamin C foods. There's a big thing in Australia at the minute where they're seeing a lot of scurvy, and so that means they're not getting enough vitamin C. So so that if you haven't got enough vitamin C, you cannot absorb enough iron. And is your gut good? You know, that's the next place I go. If your gut's not working, then you're absolutely not going to be absorbing iron. Okay, so that's all today. If there's no other questions, I will see you next month. But please feel free to pop any questions in the box any day. I'll answer them. I have no problem doing that. Or anything you need to know. That's good. And I will see you soon. Have a great day.